Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. It's been a while since he's been on the program. In fact, he's so busy he doesn't call, he doesn't write, I don't know what he's up to anymore. Governor John Hickenlooper, so glad to have you with us.
Glad to be back.
We used to do this a lot when you were mayor, so just curious. You miss being mayor? You like being governor? I mean, you're by the stats, you're the country's most popular governor, which means there's only one way to go.
Right, down.
Yeah, so how are you enjoying it?
I love it. I think, you know, it's a wonderful opportunity, to meet the most interesting people you could ever meet and deal with real issues and challenges and problems. And, you know, as good as all that is also you get to go and go to all corners of the state of Colorado, and there's not a single place I haven't been in Colorado that I haven't said, wow, this is beautiful. I mean, we just live in an amazingly beautiful state with an amazingly beautiful population.
It is. Getting around, particularly when you're doing politics, and you and I have done that, but going around campaigning for an issue or whatever, you go to these towns you didn't even know it exists. I grew up here and I still didn't know they exist. What's the biggest difference between mayor and being gov?
Well, mayor is more granular. You're right kind of in the thick of it, and you know, you're fixing potholes and timing traffic signals and worrying about the police officers in a neighborhood. And you know, you operate a little bit on a higher level at the state. Things are a little more arm's length, and you're looking at bigger budgets and bigger kind of larger issues. But if you care about kids and you want to help kids, or you want to change some aspect of the way the world works, you can do more as a governor than you can as a mayor.
First couple of years as governor, let me speculate. You had a nice out for a lot of things. You had that one vote lead for Republicans in the House, so a lot of stuff that might have landed on your desk didn't. I think your predecessor, Bill Ritter, had a couple of those things that landed on his desk that he really didn't want to deal with, including some union issues. Those days are gone, Gov. You've got strong majorities in both houses, and also I would say a little different type of majority. They're not old-fashioned Colorado rural Democrats. These are more progressive intellectuals in charge. What's it going to be for you?
Well, I think and if I end up having to veto a bunch of bills, I'll view that as my failure. I think my job is to go out there and make sure everybody knows what my core values are, what the key positions are on some of these things, and as bills work their way through, make sure they don't come to my desk so that I have to veto them. But you know, if that happens, and it's something that I don't think is in the right direction or the best interest of Colorado, I'm not afraid to veto stuff.
Let's get a couple of those. This year, civil unions will pass.
Right.
Last year, it was just this wonderful debacle at the end. You called them back in, and it still didn't happen. Now, the last time the people weighed in on this, they passed a constitutional ban against gay marriage. Is the time right for this? You've signaled your support. I'm certain you'll sign this into law. Why is Colorado ready for this?
Well, I've been saying this for 15 years. You know, when I worked in the restaurant business, I think we were the first restaurant downtown to have a general manager who was gay. I mean, when you're in the restaurant business, there's a lot of gay workers, and they become part of your family. And you know, I don't think we should ever tell a church who they should marry. I mean, that's a sacrament in many churches. But I do think that that every person should have the same civil rights. And I think if it had gotten to the floor last year, it would have passed. It would have passed last year. And at a certain point, to me, what's amazing is how rapidly some of these trends are accelerating, right? That the people, especially young people, are saying, hey, these are people. Let them all have the same legal rights. We'll put marriage to the churches.
Now, there's a lot of folks who say there's a danger here. There's a danger not only to the family unit, but there's also dangers, societal dangers that they've got their studies that say this is a breakup of the family. This means more money is going to social services. How do you respond for those who try to put this into this is going to hurt people?
Right. Well, I disagree. I mean, I do think the traditional strength of the family is in jeopardy, but it's really in jeopardy by how many kids are being born without marriages, without long-term commitments of parents. And the challenges that you see when we look at chronic homelessness among families, I mean, it puts the kids in such a disadvantage. So I believe certainly in doing everything we can to strengthen families, but the implication is that somehow this is going to increase the number of gays and lesbians and
or that
bisexuals.
it's a validation of a lifestyle that symbolically we don't want to validate that lifestyle. We don't understand that lifestyle. I mean, I don't understand that lifestyle. And is a government's job to put a stamp of approval on that?
I mean, you're saying it's a stamp of approval. I'm saying it's the same basic legal rights, right? That they're citizens of the same country in the same state that you and I are, and shouldn't they have the same rights?
So Representative Kagan asked me to come. He was putting forward a bill. We have a very old adultery law on the books. It says that adultery is illegal, and it also says that if somebody knowingly rents a room to two people who aren't married, that's a Class 2 misdemeanor. So that every hotel owner, every landlord is potentially can be harassed by this law. So he needed a very moral person to come and testify for it. So I came to testify for it, telling him that there's just truckloads of married women who want to have affairs with me, but they won't because of this damn law. And I don't mind the adultery law. Fine, that's a statement, I suppose. There's no penalty, but the idea of having a law like this one that says it's decades and decades and decades old, that can be pulled out and used against people in a selective way, in an abuseful way. So it has been used 3 or 4 times in the last few years. And when something like that comes to your desk, how do you decide?
You're talking about getting rid of, repealing a law like that?
Yeah, repealing a law like that.
Again, the same way you do anything. You try and look at what the benefits and the costs are, and then make your best decision. I mean, that sounds like a law that's an anachronism from a different time in history.
Well, I worry about laws that are selectively enforceable like that. I mean, I think that was used as a moral issue for people having affairs, but to be honest, I think it was been used to hassle homosexual couples because what are you going to get them on? And so the law was there. So, I mean, I worry about those type of laws that stay on the books that can be used here as an abuse if we want to get to some person.
Right.
With that in mind, let's go to the big laws. We're in the center of a storm here on gun control, and I grew up here, and as you know, I used to be an anti-gunner. Now I'm a full-fledged gunner, and I'm wondering about these proposals and why you think they might make an actual difference in some of those. And let's kind of go through a couple of those.
Sure. So I would go with after the shootings in the movie theater last July. I mean, the 2 things that I came away with that were compelling, and I talked to people the next month and tried to work through and came to a kind of a point of view about mental illness. We weren't doing enough about mental illness, and we were not really putting any effort at all into making sure that there was capacity for people that were going to be a danger to themselves or others. That was one. And then the other one that I immediately was drawn to was universal background checks. And I know that some people say, you would probably say they don't do any good, they're not enforceable, but we went and pulled the facts from 2012. And again, we only cover 60% of the gun transactions, only the ones from gun dealers and gun shows. And people say, well, the criminals are too smart. They're not going to go for a background check. Well, tell that to the 236 that when they came back to pick up their gun, we arrested them because there was a warrant out for their arrest. Tell that to the over 1,000 who had been either accused or convicted of felony assault, the 38 that had been accused or convicted of homicide, the 133 that had been accused or convicted of sexual assault. I mean, we had over 2,000 people that had been either accused or convicted of violent crimes that were trying to get a gun. And for $8 or $10 to be able to, again, when I went around the state and talked to Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everyone, and asked this, it was, I can count on both hands. I probably talked to 100 people, and I don't think 10 people had a problem with it.
Well, I understand that, and I don't think people have a problem with that in the general. It gets down to the details. Let's go through a few of those details. Okay. I love shooting my Glock 17. It's use it in competitions, and it's called a Glock 17 because the magazine holds 17 rounds. This ban coming up on anything more than 15 rounds makes this pretty useless. I can't use this gun. They don't make a 15-round magazine for it. Also, it says I can't replace it. Magazines, they're springs. That's all it is, a spring. And it's a spring wrapped in a folded metal, and it's a spring. They wear out, and I won't be able to get a new one when this one wears out. What really concerns me is I won't be able to give this to my kids, my daughter, when she starts shooting, and I hope she does, and we go shooting together. This is a gun I won't be able to transfer to her, and it's a magazine I won't be able to transfer to her. What in the world is the difference with those last 2 shots that makes the difference between a mass shooting and some lifestyle? And this lifestyle is one of the things that is very important here in Colorado.
Right. Well, I think they're still negotiating that, and the number, whether it's 15 or 17 or 20 or 10, I mean, I've heard those numbers go back and forth. I think the issues were when you used high-capacity magazines larger than 15, the things that seemed to be concerning people were 30 to 40% of the police killings of police officers dying in the line of duty were as a result of high-capacity magazines. Of the 62 mass shootings in the last 30 years, 31 had high-capacity magazines. The Tucson shooting of Gabby Giffords, after he'd shot his 30 bullets, he dropped his clip as he was changing it, and this woman picked it up, and then they tackled him. The shooting in Sandy Hook, evidently, he had a 30 capacity clip and then another 30 capacity clip taped to the bottom of it. He shot his way through the door, and they thought, evidently, the principal and I think the school nurse or school psychologist thought he was changing his clip and rushed him, and he just flipped it over and was able to do it with one hand.
I understand that bad guys do bad things, particularly with guns. That has happened. But overwhelmingly here in Colorado, those of us who have guns haven't done that. And I think of my life. I'm not that guy. I know we have laws against drunk driving, and we punish people when they have committed the crime, and we escalate those things, but we don't punish sober people when they go. Why is it that I can't have the standard capacity magazine I have, and when I shoot an AR, it's a 30 round, that's what comes with a gun, it's standard. I'll be able to buy it in all the states that surround us. What makes me a danger to have that? We talked about homosexuals being accepted, even though we don't understand what they do, and people having a hotel room without renting a hotel room without having that abusive charge. Why is it that I shouldn't enjoy this lifestyle?
Right.
What have I done?
Well,
why are you doing this to me?
Well, you've done many things.
That's true.
I don't think we have time to go into them here.
on the issue of gun crimes.
But I think you get back to sawed-off shotguns, right? And Tommy guns, right? So back in the Depression, when bank robbers were beginning just to go crazy, as a country, we came together and said, all right, a sawed-off shotgun's a very useful weapon, depending your bedroom to your house. In the dark, you can hear a sound, and with buckshot in it, it's a truly lethal weapon. But it was being used so often in terms of how people felt about it. Now, if you actually looked at the number of bank robberies relative to the population, it wasn't that many. But the perception was that people were at risk, and that bank tellers and people working in banks were dying because of these weapons. And so we said, all right, what is...
Bank tellers continued to die after the machine gun ban of 1934. So these bans didn't change that. Also,
there's an argument that it reduced the number of...
But there was a federal law that did this.
Right.
If we take away my Glock 17 magazine here in Colorado, and you're going to make me a criminal when I go up to Wyoming to buy a replacement one, how does that serve Colorado? Instead of just having another law that can be used selectively to take care of people that maybe the police don't like.
Right. Well, I think what they're trying to get at is that at a certain point, if enough states start taking a stand, that will push the federal government. And I don't know the facts on this, but evidently with the Tommy guns, several states banned them first before the federal government did.
We had a federal ban on magazines over 10 rounds. That sunset because it didn't do anything. In fact, Obama's own Justice Department, the National Institute of Science, I forget what they call it, said without a national ban and some sort of buyback program for magazines, it won't have any sense. So I'm thinking...
I think that's a fair issue.
I'm thinking, why in the world does my daughter become a criminal when I die because I want her to have this gun that we used to go shooting with. What did she ever do for this? And that's what
Which brings us to immigration.
It brings us to immigration. All right, but and at the other parts, let's talk a little bit about the campus ban. When I saw Amanda Collins give that incredible testimony in front of Evie Hudak and the callous remarks afterwards, I'm thinking, what was the problem in Colorado for those 10 years when guns were allowed on college campuses? CSU never had a ban, and their crime rate actually went down. From the statistics I've seen, sexual assaults went down.
Well, it certainly wasn't because of the guns. I mean,
it might not have, well, but it went down pretty substantially. It might have not have been the guns. It could have been something else. Right. I don't know. But what instance of shootings has there been on college campuses right. with a concealed carry ban?
Right. I'm not aware of them, and I think the statistics can be twisted, as you know, in all these different ways. Chicago has some of the most restrictive gun bans of any city, and yet they have a homicide rate that dwarfs other cities. New York has also very, very restrictive bans against handguns and other.
And those are working like charms there.
And their homicide rate's gone down dramatically.
Well, so the homicide rates have gone down dramatically, as the country's has for a while.
No. New York dwarfs the country every single year.
Murder rates has been dropping for the last 3 decades pretty steadily. I'm asking why Amanda Collins, if she wanted to, shouldn't have that ability on a college campus. If there was one law that seems very dangerous towards the issue of gun safety, it would be this one. I haven't seen any abuse on college campuses, and just because some liberal professors don't feel comfortable with what is allowed across the sidewalk out on public land there, why in the world would we disempower a woman from selecting her choice? I thought liberals were all about letting women have their choice. Why don't you want to have women have their choice on this one?
Right. Well, and my understanding was I thought that the bill was going to come out and let campuses make their own decisions about what kind of a community they want to have. I do know, and I don't know if this is I have not been part of the discussions around this bill, but I have heard firsthand of a young woman, a teacher on the campus who, when she gives bad grades on a couple of occasions, she's felt threatened by students and was worried that they might have a gun, or she's reading the same newspaper, seeing the same TVs that everyone else is, and she's fearful.
Where's the abuse in Colorado of people who have concealed weapons permits?
Right.
Where's the shooting been? And by means, where has it been on a college campus? The one thing that could help, in my estimation, stop shootings on campuses, I mean, these were all gun-free zones, is to make this another gun-free zone. Right. What do you say to Amanda Collins as you sign that bill?
Well, let's see if the bill comes through, and let it get fully debated and see what form it comes through, and then we'll see what the consequences are.
The regents hate guns on campus. They will always do that. But
all the regents?
Not all the regents. There's 2 at least who support it, but the regents have made it clear they don't want guns on their campus. Now they'll allow free speech, and they've got a clinic, and they've got all sorts of things that give people choices and rights. But I thought the reason we had the government was to protect some of these rights, even when other governments want to take it away.
Sure.
I mean, what do you say to that one?
Well, I mean, I think you look at it from both sides, well, I won't even go down there. I'll just get myself in trouble. I'm gonna restrain myself on the very few times I'll show some sort of judgment.
Then I'll move on. You brought up the background check, and the background check, even as a gunny, I get this. We want to make sure that when you buy a gun, it's okay, but it's not. I worry about a list of guns that the government has, that it gets to the point where where even gun owners say, hey, make a registration, because I'm getting tired of being hassled whether or not someone gave me this gun, whether I bought this gun, whether my uncle willed it to me. How do we know that there won't be a database attached to this?
Because we've had gun checks here for over a decade, and there is no database, right? It's explicit that the information is kept by the gun dealer, and if the gun dealer goes out of business, whatever, he's got to, by law, box it up and send it in.
Send it in to the guys who keep the databases.
Yeah, but again, or pass along to whoever buys his gun shop or whatever. I mean, there will never be a centralized database on that. I don't think that if there was, it would be this conspiratorial malevolence that could come out of it. But I recognize the risk.
Well, we make laws. I think about the law. We're going back to the hotel law. You make laws, but you don't know what they're going to do decades from now.
And I think that's the greatest challenge anybody on the Capitol has on the Hill is unintended consequences. Something sounds good, and then you end up having a lot of problems from it. This is a way to, again, we had over 2,000 people last year, just in 1 year, that were either formally legally accused or convicted of violent crimes who were trying to buy a gun. So that information is not being kept by the state. That information, we provide the check, and then the information is kept by the gun dealer. And the gun dealers, you got to trust them. They're the ones who sell the guns.
When it comes to the procedure, though, and I bought a shotgun, and I want to give it to my nephew. What is the proof that he went through this process? What's the proof that
he didn't have to? He's your family.
The way it's currently written, I can't give it to it.
Oh, no, that's been changed.
That's been changed already.
Yeah. So some of us have information and work on these things. And we read about the complaints. So your nephews and nieces will be able, you can give your gun. Now, you can't give the way the law is.
My girlfriend the shotgun?
Exactly, and you probably shouldn't.
That's a good point.
From what I've heard. But
touché.
You can't give to you can give to your nephew, your niece, your first cousin. But you can't give to your second cousin. There's got to be a line somewhere. And how do you define what that line is? But part of what this is just to try and make people recognize, like gun safety courses, make people recognize that this is a right. It's protected in the Second Amendment, but it's a serious responsibility. And people should have a moment to think about, who am I giving this gun to, right? And am I absolutely sure, do I know them well enough that they're not going to go out and commit some crime with it?
The Colorado doesn't stand alone. Society is so very mobile. Guns come in, people move out. Sure. Guns come back and forth. Those things are going to happen. There's still going to be that way to do it. How do you enforce something like this universal background check? Well, I mean, we all agree with the goal. I'm not. But what's the mechanics of saying, here's a guy who had a gun? Did he have a background check? Do we have to carry around a piece of paper to show that we had that background check?
We don't have to carry it around, but if you use that gun in a crime and that gun becomes part of the evidence or evidentiary trail, then you're going to have to go home and take that piece of paper out and say, here's how I got the gun. The trick.
So it will be beholden on the gun owner.
If it's used in a crime.
To hold on to every.
Well, or he can go back to the gun dealer, and the gun dealer can. All he has to do is say, here's where I got the gun, or here's the gun dealer that did the background check. So, I mean, the bottom line is, we can't enforce. How do we enforce speeding, right? Or drunk driving, right? We don't have a cop on every corner. We make a law because we want everyone to obey it. And maybe we can't universally enforce it. But again, if we'd stopped 5,000 violent criminals from getting guns last year. If we'd expanded to internet sales and these other person-to-person sales, we probably would have picked up at least another 1,000 violent criminals who got guns and now have guns.
See, I can tell you're not a gunny because internet sales have to go to an FFL dealer and has to do it.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see you learn something every day.
You need to come to our alcohol, tobacco, and firearms party, my friend. But I guess what I'm trying to express is the same concern I had with this silly old law that said innkeepers are committing a crime.
Right.
That they're used selectively. It's when we're out for you. I'm worried in the future, many of these gun laws, including the magazine ban, because you're not going to stop them unless you have a buyback program and serial number them. And trust me, I'm going to go up to Wyoming. Let me be the first one to tell you, when my Glock 17 magazine wears out, I'm not going to throw away my gun, and I'm not going to use some other magazine. I'm going to go to Kansas and buy another one. Right. And now I'm going to be a criminal. And I don't, just like the guy who rented the room to the unmarried couple, my intent is not bad. My intent is to do what is my lifestyle. And I'm worried about future abuse, particularly on something on a state level. How do you address that?
Well, again, we're trying to create a set of laws that people will obey, and in terms of the background checks, I don't think there's any question that the more closely people obey them, anybody who bends the law or avoids it, I mean, they'll probably get away with it. People drive speed all the time, right? Go down and look at the interstate. In terms of the Glock, Is that the 40 caliber Glock?
No, it's a 9mm.
A 9mm.
My God, you city boys know nothing. You know that?
Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up.
You know, if you want, we take a few tin cans out in the alley. We'll show you. No, but it's it's probably the most popular and used handgun in the country. Okay. And it's it was designed in a new and spectacular way 25 years ago.
So have I assume other people have gone to the people that are writing the bill and saying, hey, this is the basic equipment on this Glock, of which there are 80
we've tried.
billion.
Interestingly, when you said we wanted to have a discussion, the Senate limited public debate to an hour and a half on each bill. So it seemed like the discussion was only pretty one-sided. But as I said before, I was an anti-gunner. I was just like these people who are pushing it right now. For me, these things were evil. I saw the extremes, the outliers.
And what changed you?
What changed me was getting to know it personally. And it took my brother a year and a half taking me shooting, showing me the guns, me doing the research, and to demystify it, to take it away. And the exact same thing that I think we've seen in the gay debate, as people have been demystified that, wait a second, they're not out to corrupt people. Yeah, there's some people that might make you feel uncomfortable, but they're just people. We should allow them to live their lifestyle. Right. But I'm now not able to live my lifestyle. You might not understand it. I don't understand men having anal sex with one another. You might not understand this one, but I think we both should be protected.
Right. Well, my experience of gun, my family grew up in a sense of gun culture as well. Probably not to the same extent as your brother.
Probably not. Please, I'm begging you. I'll give you 20 bucks. Veto all of them. I'll give you 100. Governor, thank you. Let's do this again soon.
All right, great.
Tell a friend, and we'll see you next week. Listen for me on KHOW. That's on 6:30. And have fun.